Hello and welcome to Tête-à-Tête, France 24's flagship interview show. Our guest today is the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte. Thank you very much for being here.
Mark, so nice to meet you.
Mr. Rutte, the Munich Security Conference where we are issued a report in which it describes the action of the Trump administration as a quote-unquote wrecking ball. Has Donald Trump been a wrecking ball for NATO?
No. To the contrary, last year all European nations and Canada came to this famous 2% defense spending. Big economies like Spain, Italy, Belgium and Canada not on 2%, reaching the 2%. And then we had the summit in The Hague mid last year where we agreed on a new target of 5%. Which we will reach over the coming years with a credible path, including 3.5% core defense spending. I think President Trump was very important to reach this, not only because he was asking for it, but also because the French, the Germans, the Dutch and the others recognize the enormous threat Russia is posing.
Would you go as far as describe him as the savior of NATO?
I would say that we're all better off for having this American president really pushing for this, and at the same time Europeans having a unity of vision. I was yesterday really struck when we had a Minister of Defense meeting in Brussels, where basically not only we agreed on the defense spending and a credible path, but also this shift in mindset. What I saw yesterday is a Europe really taking more of the leadership role within NATO. What I saw yesterday is Europe taking more control of its own defense. Together with the United States in NATO, US will always be anchored in NATO, is very much anchored in NATO, even more so I think than a year ago. I think NATO is stronger than a year ago. And I would argue that because of that, we are stronger together and we can basically face our adversaries with more confidence.
Do you have guarantees from Washington that there will not be a sizable troop withdrawal from Europe and that the nuclear protection will remain as is?
Well, you could read the speech Bridge Colby was delivering yesterday in the defense ministers meeting. He published it. He is the policy guy in the Pentagon.
He didn't give figures.
No, but we know these figures because we know that for Europe to stay strong, we need the US being anchored in Europe. But for the US to stay safe, you need a strong Europe, a strong Arctic, a secure Atlantic. So we are in this together. There's no one who wants to break up NATO. But what we do want and what the Americans expect is the Europeans taking more of a leadership role. And that's happening as we go forward. And that's very positive.
When you wake up in the morning, do you think more about Greenland or about Ukraine?
Absolutely about Ukraine. And when
you went there recently.
I was there last week and I was really struck again by the resilience of the Ukrainian people, but I also saw with my own eyes a heating plant taken out by 5 missiles, completely destroyed, responsible for heating 1,100 of these huge Kiev apartment blocks. 250,000 people living there under conditions of minus 25 degrees. They have no heating for the next 2 months. But people are resilient. They will not give up. And the Russians, as we speak, are making very slow progress in Donbass. It is really the stilted pace of a garden snail, what we are seeing, and not this big Russian bear. And ranking up 35,000 deaths in December, 30,000 deaths in January on the Russian side. So they are not doing that well.
How many totals have died according to your assessment?
Oh, I don't have the total numbers, but in 2 months it was 65,000, and that is a staggering number. Don't forget that the Soviet Union in the 1980s lost under 20,000 in 10 years in Afghanistan. This is 65,000 in 2 months.
But the support for Ukraine, you said it repeatedly, it's not enough. It's not quick enough, it's not big enough. What's missing?
Now, the good news is that also yesterday was the defense ministers meeting. The Europeans and the Canadians are doing more and more for Ukraine.
But not enough.
No, but we still need more. We need more interceptors, we need more ammunition, and we are constantly working on this. But I must say that I was really impressed yesterday again in the defense ministers meeting that so many were committing, and I know that a lot is cooking and new commitments will be announced over the coming days and weeks.
Does this mean the goal that the Ukrainians want and that you accepted of $15 billion spent through this program set up whereby European countries will buy US weapons will be met in 2026?
Yes,
is this realistic?
Yeah, it is realistic. I'm really confident we will, because this is crucial material, both lethal and non-lethal, including these interceptors. You need to take out missiles when they when there is the risk that they will come down on your city. And only the US is able to provide them in these quantities. We all realize that this has to be done, paid for by Europeans and Canadians, and we see many countries participating.
What about the negotiations? It seems the U.S. is pressuring Ukraine to come to a ceasefire and maybe more. Now there are reports that it could be in June before the midterm elections in the U.S. Is this acceptable to put a deadline for Ukraine to negotiate and probably cede territory?
Well, this is not my assessment at the moment of the talks. I must say the US, the American President Trump has taken the leadership, breaking the deadlock with Putin last year, February. And consistently, the US team under his leadership, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, Marco Rubio, are driving the peace process. But this takes time.
It's still a deadlock. I mean, you said they break the deadlock. I only see a deadlock.
Well, only one person was able to start to negotiate directly with Putin. He did. And I cannot recall any big conflict in recent history which is easily dealt with in a couple of weeks. This takes time. The problem here is that we are not sure whether the Russians are serious, whether they are willing to play ball. What I saw last week in Ukraine is showing evidence against it.
Right.
And what the Americans primarily are doing at the moment is testing the Russians, how serious they are, knowing that the Ukrainians want to bring this war to an end.
Should the Europeans also test the Russians? The French president said it's time to do it. The Germans seem to be on another opinion.
Well, it is not this or that. What the French president said, Emmanuel Macron, and his national security advisor having talks with the Russians was closely coordinated with the Americans, with the Europeans. So we'll see. But I mean, the lead in all of this is with the Americans. But of course, if others think they can add to this and they do it in a closely coordinated manner, fine.
Is Russia already at war with NATO?
Not at war with NATO, but when we look at hybrid and all the other stuff going on, let's not be naive. But NATO is so strong that they will not attack us today or tomorrow because they know our reaction will be devastating. The risk is that in 2, 4 or 6 years from now, they might be so strong that they try. And that is why we have to ramp up our defense spending. The good news is we are doing it. We are ramping up. The Germans will spend over 150 billion euros by 2029, twice as much as in 2021. Really taking the leadership here, which is crucial.
This is the only way to deter Russia from eventually targeting the Baltic countries or other...
Yeah, but you're talking about the Baltic countries. But don't forget, you're from Paris. These latest Russian missiles come down with 5 times the speed of sound. You cannot take them out with your anti-missile systems. So we are all on the eastern flank. So Tallinn is only 5 minutes closer to Moscow than Paris is. The difference is 5 minutes. We are all on the eastern flank. We all have to defend ourselves better, ramp up our deterrence and defense, ramp up our defense industry. And in France, you have some of the most beautiful defense industrial companies in the world, but they need to produce more.
The French president told them so.
And I know, and I'm totally with him. And the American president told the American defense companies they have to do more so that we can defend ourselves.
Greenland, you negotiated with President Trump what seemed to be a crisis, the annexation that Trump wanted. Is it now totally off the table? There is supposed to be a framework agreement. No one knows what the framework is.
I can tell you, it's very easy. What we discussed is this. He already, in Trump 45, when I was Prime Minister and he was President in his first term, we discussed the issue of the High North and Greenland. And I think he's absolutely right that the Russians and the Chinese are getting more and more access to the High North. Yes, they are. Look at the FT this morning, a very clear article again with all the evidence they could get from open sources on the Russian and Chinese threats. So it is real. The American president is right there. What we discussed, this is not only Greenland, it is the whole of the Arctic, it's the whole of the High North. And hey, we have NATO, and NATO is better than anyone capable to bring together all the efforts in the alliance to make sure we can protect the High North. And then when it comes to Greenland specifically, there are talks ongoing between Greenland and Denmark and the US. For example, if the US is putting its air defense systems on Greenland, that if Greenland changes its legal status within the Kingdom of Denmark, that these investments are secure, and also what we collectively can do to prevent the Russians and the Chinese getting access to the Greenland economy.
So you're confident this crisis is over?
But we still have to do a lot here. I mean, we started Arctic Sentry. This is this collective NATO mission in the High North. It only started 2 days ago, and this will be very important to defend ourselves.
Mark Rutte, thank you very much for being our guest here in Munich.
Sure, Mark, thank you very much.
And thank you for watching this edition of Tête à Tête here on France 24.